burglary refresher. Okay, so, what week did you have this? A while ago?
Week 3.
Week 3, okay. Right, this is my assessor, folks, so please be help me out here. So, burglary. Session aims. Okay, so we're going to introduce and develop the students' understanding of burglary legislation and implement the legislation into some practical examples. And your learning outcomes will be able to define and discuss 91A, 91B, explain the terminology used within the definition of burglary, and apply the legislation to practical examples. Okay, right, examining the definition of burglary. So, hopefully this is a refresher and you know this already. So, 91A, so have a read of that. So, a person guilty of burglary if he enters any building or part of a building as a trespasser and with intent of stealing anything inside the building or part of the building, or inflicting on any person therein any GBH, or doing unlawful damage to the building or anything therein. Okay, everyone happy with 91A? So it's all about the intention as they enter. 91B, having entered any building or part of the building as a trespasser, he steals or attempts to steal anything in the building or that part of it, or inflicts or attempts to inflict on any person GBH. So I always used to remember having entered GT, that's how I remember GBH or theft. So, okay, 91A, 91B. So, what are the differences between 91A and 91B? Let me check my lecture notes. Okay, anyone want to hazard a guess what the main differences are between 91A and 91B? I've more or less gone over it. Katie?
91A is entering with intent as a trespasser, whereas 91B is having already entered as a trespasser.
Yes, so basically 91A focuses on the circumstances where a person has entered the building with an intent to commit an offence. Okay, and the intent, as we said, can be to commit GBH, theft or criminal damage. And 91B, having entered, commits GBH or theft or an attempt on either of those offences. Okay, so with 91A, the burglar does not even need to steal, commit GBH or damage anything. The offence is complete at the point the burglar trespassed with the intent already formulated. Okay, does everyone understand that? I mean, proving that in reality might be tricky, but the offence is completed at the time they entered as a trespasser with the right intent. Is everyone okay with that, yeah? Okay. And 91B, okay, requires a specific criminal act to take place after the point of trespass. So the burglar does not need to trespass with intent to commit an offence. But if having entered as a trespasser, they steal, attempt to steal, or commit GBH, then the offence is completed. So they might have entered for one reason. If they commit those two offences, then you've got 91B.
What if someone goes in, like, trespasses without the intent to commit criminal damage and then commits criminal damage?
That's a great question. And I've got 4 scenarios at the end that hopefully will cover that. Can you just hold that thought for 1 minute? Is that okay, yeah? Okay, what we'll do, we'll just do the terminology first. So hopefully you've done this already in terms of your e-learning and other stuff. So what is meant by enters? Does anyone want to sort of just give me an idea what they think?
Any part, sorry.
Can you repeat that?
Any part of their body or tool.
Yeah, in simple terms, goes in, yeah? So if there's no entry, there's no burglary. So only part of the offender has to enter, which is your point, for an entry to have been made. An implement used by a burglar is still considered burglary i.e. using a coat hanger through a letterbox to hook out car keys, that sort of stuff. A person who is a child under the age of criminal responsibility to enter a building and steal is regarded as himself entering the building. Okay, so let's move on to building. What is meant by building or part of a building? Yes?
Anything with a degree of permanence?
Yes. So the structure must have a degree of permanence. Tents would not be included even if they were lived in. Vehicles or vessels used as dwellings are considered to be buildings. So part of a building, a roped off area in a museum, for example, or the upstairs at a house party, that type of thing. Okay, and trespasser. Anyone want to give me a definition of trespass for the purpose of this? Literally, simple terms, yeah?
Somebody who doesn't have permission to be there.
Exactly, yeah. So entering without the permission of the owner. So there could be an intentional trespass, breaking in or deceiving the owner into providing access, reckless trespass, obvious risk there might be trespassing but this is ignored. We have scenarios where you have, I don't know, a workman turning up in a British Gas outfit and he tricks an elderly lady to say that he's here to fix her boiler. Having entered, he then steals, you know, her savings on her bed, typical example. But although she's allowed him access, he's tricked her, he's entered as a trespasser because he's not working for British Gas, obviously, yeah? Okay, so what is meant by intent to commit an offence? An offence, that should be, okay. So the offence under 9(1)A requires the trespasser at the time of entering the building or part of it must intend to commit one of these three offences, so theft, GBH, or damage the building unlawfully. Right, okay, scenarios. Hopefully this will work. So a suspect inserts a cane with a hook attached to the end through a letterbox and searches around the porch of a dwelling looking for car keys to steal a car. Is burglary committed? Yes. So the cane is an extension of the suspect's arm, therefore he has entered the building and attempted to steal car keys. 9(1), A or B? I'd go with B. Having entered, he then attempts to steal.
Doesn't he?
If he's looking, he has
But
the
it doesn't-
intent.
Say again?
You've got to say the fact that he's looking for car keys is his intent.
So he's committed 9(1)A and he's committed 9(1)B. So he's entered the building as a trespasser with the intent to steal. Having entered with the cane, he then attempts to hurt the car keys. So quite often, you'll have burglars that will commit 9(1)A and 9(1)B. Does that make sense? So it's just the way the legislation is. I'm entering the building with the intent to steal. Having entered, I steal. I committed 9(1)A and 9(1)B. The CPS will probably charge with 9(1)B because it's easy to prove. Having entered. Okay, so quite often they'll have committed both offences. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah, 9(1)A and 9(1)B. The whole journey is complete, isn't it? Okay, so Malone and his 9-year-old son are walking along a canal towpath. Malone instructs his son to enter one of the narrowboats to steal from within. Malone's son enters the narrowboat and returns to his father with cash and jewellery. So, have we got an offence of burglary here, and who is guilty? So Malone is guilty because his son is below the age of criminal responsibility. Yeah. So although Malone's son is below the age of criminal responsibility, he's following instructions from his father. So Malone is guilty of 9(1) or 9(1)B, definitely, isn't he? Okay. I'm hoping we've got your scenario. What's the young lady's name here? To your right.
Oh.
What's your name?
Ruro.
I think we've got one for you now, hopefully. No, not yet. You've got number 4. Okay, right, excuse the names. Norman is walking around John Lewis in the Westfield Shopping Centre and enters a side room that is clearly marked private staff only. Norman is looking to steal cash to feed his drug habit. So he enters a side room, he cannot find any cash, so returns to the main public area. What does he commit in terms of burglary? Norman has entered part of the building as a trespasser with the intention of stealing. Although he does not steal, he commits 918. Everyone happy with that? Yeah? So he's entered as a trespasser with the intention to steal. As he walks into that staff room, burglary 918, he can't find anything. His actions haven't gone far enough for there to be an attempt either. If he'd seen a drawer and opened it, then there would be an attempted theft, so you'd have 918 and 91B. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. Is it rural?
Yeah.
Here we go. Right. Malcolm is homeless and breaks into a residential property with the intention of sleeping there for the evening. Whilst in the property, he smashes up a wooden shed to use it as firewood to keep warm. He leaves the premises in the morning. Does he commit any offence under the Burglary Act?
Damage.
Anyone say yes?
No, because he didn't go in with intent.
No. Okay, so we'll talk it through. Malcolm has entered as a trespasser, but at the time he entered, he doesn't have any intention to steal, cause GBH, or commit criminal damage. So if you look at the question, these are the sort of thing you'll get. So he's entered with the intention of sleeping only when he enters. So 91A is not there. Does everyone understand that? So his intention is sleeping only. Having entered, he then commits criminal damage. Okay? Not theft, and not GBH. So he commits an offence of probably criminal damage.
So you're charged with
Yeah, does that make sense?
and trespassing.
Yeah, there's no criminal offence of trespassing. But yeah, so he's not a burglar, he's a homeless person, there's no 918, having entered, there's no GBH or theft, he has caused damage, so he's committed criminal damage. Doesn't feel right, but that's the way the legislation is. Does everyone understand that, yeah? So hopefully if that comes up in the future, because years ago we had lots of scenarios where we were called to properties where people were squatting. We couldn't arrest them all for burglary because they'd gone in there for the purpose of sleeping and staying warm. They'd lit fires, but they weren't burglars. They were homeless people who were. You'll know who your burglars are. They'll be out there committing, crimes and with the intention of stealing things. So a homeless person who breaks in for the purpose of sleeping, unfortunately, breaks up a nice oak table to burn. It's unpleasant for the owners, and it's a lovely table that may have been broken, but that's criminal damage.
So how would you prove the intent?
By questioning them, the fact that they're in there, they haven't got any possessions. So how would you
Prove.
that they didn't intend to break up the table before they got in there?
Yeah.
I mean, for them to know the table was in there before they entered would be tricky.
I mean, well, so I guess you'd have to, if they've got stuff on them, to commit that damage.
Yeah. So if they've gone in there with a saw.
Yeah.
And a sledgehammer, you could say, clearly, you went to the premises to commit criminal damage because you took some tools with you. That's a really good point, yeah. But if they've gone in there with their sleeping bag and not a lot else, and they stick their guns in their interview, I only broke in because I wanted somewhere to sleep, and I was cold in the night, so then I broke up. It can be difficult for you to disprove that. Did you have a question?
I can do it after your recording if you want, because it's a bit of a weird question.
Say that again.
I can do it after your recording if you want, because it's a bit of a weird question. I'm not sure what. Basically, my friend's got a house,
Yeah.
and there's drones that fly overhead surveying the house, and they've tried to get in the house with the intent to see what's in there to steal. What offence would that come under at all? Because it's a tool that he's using.
Yeah. Have they entered the building as a
They tried
trespasser.
to enter the building and they've also just surveyed the house from the
So-
outside, but they've literally tried to go through.
So going
windows.
back to 91A, no entry, no burglary.
But if they get through a window
If
without
that
cameras.
device is flown into the window, that's an extension of the
Yeah,
driver's hand.
okay.
So they've entered. There might be some stated case, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have they entered? See, the cane is an extension of your body.
That was my
Is
question.
a drone, I don't think, probably an extended part of the body because it's detached, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not using the drone to steal something there and then, are you? You're using the cane or the child. So I don't think you've got any offences. You might have a conspiracy,
Yeah.
someone they're conspiring
Yeah.
to commit burglary. That's probably more appropriate. So as a team, they're in that conspiracy process of planning, aren't they?
Yeah.
Conspiring. But you haven't got a burglary.
Okay.
Okay. How many for time?
16 minutes.
16 minutes. Okay. Any other questions on my 4 scenarios? I'm glad one of the scenarios was helped you with your scenario. That's really good. I'm happy about that. Okay. So key points. So you now better understand the difference between 91A and 91B. Know the points of proof, the terminology, entering as a trespasser, building or part of a building. Are there any final questions? Okay, thank you very much.